as people are coming in, you're probably wondering why the name The Huddle. I used to play a lot of sports in high school, and the huddle is where we get together and we reset, we refocus, we come up with new strategies and new ways to win. And so that's why we pick the name The Huddle. I know an hour seems like a lot of time, but once we get going, guys, it goes so quickly. So I'm just going to go into the chat. Okay, Ardette, she comes up first and she has Bermuda. Where in Bermuda are you connecting from, Ardette? We have Lisa from Sandy's. We have Kelly from St. George's. Kyra, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Kyra, from Sandy's. We have the British Virgin Islands. Never been there. Belize. I need to go to Belize. Awesome. I'm continuing to check out. Where are you dialing in from? Oh, Ardette's corrected. She's in the parish of Warwick. Sydney's in Pembroke. Kelly in Hamilton. Maybe I'm not that far from you, Kelly. Dalen is in Hamilton as well. Then there's Warwick. Awesome. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. All right. And we have about 25 people on. So panelists, are you excited about this? You can drop in the chat as well and participate with the group. I'm assuming that all my panelists are in the city in their offices, but I know that a lot of us do work, still remote work, hybrid. Natasha said that she's hyped. Yes, she's hyped. Good energy. Ariana had a little bit of problem with her voice, but I think she's all ready for today. Ready to give us some great information. There are more people coming into the room. So we are about a minute out from starting, and I really want to honor everybody's time. So for those who made it a priority to get here on time, we are going to honor that, okay? We want to start off. Oh, Ariana is logging in from Conyers and she's very excited. Georgia, did I miss your response? Looking for Georgia. Welcome to the hybrid world. You're sharing screens and you're checking the chat. You're multitasking all at once, and you have to do it really calm while you're doing all of this. Georgia, you can come off mic if you want, if that's easier, but it's not showing up on my end of the internet.
No, I'll just reiterate, Tash, we're just excited. You're
excited.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay, people are continuing to join, and my watch is saying it's 12 noon, so we are gonna get started. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone that has entered this room with a intention around trying to find out more about something that may be an area that you may not have considered before. And what we're really excited about the Huddle is that we are able to do this in a virtual platform, which means that you can join in from wherever you are and you can be a part of this conversation. So for those who have never been a part of the Huddle is a platform for our Gen Zs and also for, I call them the younger millennials. So if you're like 28, 27, 29, you're in this group. And I know there are some people that have sneaked in that are like Gen Xers, which is my age group, but that's okay, you're welcome. But the Huddle is a platform, a virtual platform, and it will soon be in person as well, where we discuss topics that are of relevance to this particular age group. So just to give you an idea, in the past, we've addressed how to negotiate what you're worth. We've discussed how to build your network strategically. And then we rounded off the year by looking at how to create that work-life balance that you're looking for. And so those are the topics that the Gen Zs had picked last year for us to really delve into. And on those discussions, we had panelists and experts that really shared some practical steps and practical ways in which you can upskill and up-level your game. Today, we are just excited to have with us a group from two individuals from Deloitte, and then we have Ariana from Conyers, and we're going to be talking a little bit about an unusual career path that maybe many of you on the call may not be aware of. Certainly, I wasn't as aware of that. And so I'm also looking forward to learning and having a conversation. As you can see on the screen, the huddle is about not just having a conversation about what we're good at, but it's building a space where everyone feels included and feels belong and walking away feeling informed and more inspired and with some good set of actions. All right. So we're going to jump right into it. A little bit about myself. There's a lot of information on the screen and I'm not going to read it, but if you look at it, you'll see a little bit about who I am. But the bottom line is what I am completely sold out in doing is really helping to equip the next generation to become the leaders that tomorrow requires. Equipping the next generation for the leader that tomorrow's world requires. And so this is all about getting information now so that you can be empowered and that you can not only be informed, but you can have clarity and direction about where you want to go next. So my background has, for the last 30 years, been as an underwriting executive, both in the insurance and in the reinsurance space. And I've worked in markets all around the world. And I now have my own company, Clarendon Wallace, through which I provide executive coaching, career coaching, and a significant amount of leadership and corporate training. But in my spare time, what I love to do is this pet project. This is my pet project, the Huddle, which is this amazing platform. And I'm so excited to be leading this conversation with a wonderful, wonderful group of predominantly local talent. And so I'm going to really just start off by introducing each of our panelists. So we have NATASHA, TROTT, we have Georgia Thompson, and we have ARIANA CAINES. So Camry, if you can do a spotlight on myself and all the panelists at this time, that would be great. So NATASHA, now you can read it yourself. Rule number one, you're presenting. You don't need to read the screen because everyone can read. But have a look at NATASHA's background. You can see that she has a predominant background in the finance space and that she's currently studying towards her Chartered Financial Analyst designation, which I know is a lot of work. I know a few people that have done this. NATASHA reached out to me several months ago and asked me whether or not I would be interested in hosting Deloitte as a guest so that she could share with each one of you some perhaps maybe new information or information that you know very little about a space in which she functions in and she succeeds at, and she would like to pop the cork off this particular area. And as I've said before, I really relate to what NATASHA's desire was, because when I started in the insurance industry back in the 80s, I know many of you may not have been born then, there was very little known about the underwriting space, certainly for local talent. And that was something that I really wanted to change fundamentally. Most of us who started in the industry fell into the industry. Can you imagine? We literally fell into one of the most lucrative career opportunities in Bermuda. And now that has changed where it is the norm. And so, NATASHA, what I'm hoping that at the end of our time together today, that this particular profession will be one of those professions that will become the norm of what individuals will choose as an option, as a career choice. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having the vision, for having the passion, and most of all, for having this desire to make sure that all talent gets exposed to areas that I call it hidden in plain sight, so that we can attract the best talent and that we can hopefully inform others as well. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. She looks lovely in her, I think it's black and white. All right. Georgia is with us. Georgia is in the house, and Georgia is coming to us all the way from Leeds. I've been to Leeds several times, Georgia, so welcome. She is in Bermuda, in the Bermuda office, and has an amazing background as well in this space. And one of the things I really reiterated in our prep call with each of the panelists is we're going to talk in plain English so that everyone can understand exactly what it is that each one of these amazing professional women, what they do on a day-to-day basis, so that you can really understand and hopefully they'll be able to share some experiences that you can relate to as well. So Georgia, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for giving up some of your time to really expose each one of us to this particular talent skill. We're going to save the best for last, right, Ariana? So Ariana is not from Deloitte. Ariana is from Conyers. She's an attorney. Again, you can read her bio. It's right there on the screen for you to see. What is interesting about Ariana is she is a part of this entire professional area, and she brings a certain set of skills that helps to support this area that Natasha and Georgia will be talking about. So for those who may have a legal background or have an interest in the legal side, you really get to see how this particular profession operates and how it utilizes different skill set in order to serve the client. Okay, so Ariane is bringing her skill set as an attorney into the equation, and we will hear how that shows up for her and how together they work to serve the client. All right, so welcome, Ariana. So there's a little bit about Deloitte. I love this picture of Bermuda. And you can read that yourself. Deloitte is one of the big 4 accounting firms. And they've been in Bermuda for many, many years, so have their peers. And well known as an accounting firm. But again, we're breaking it down a little bit, and we're peeking in a little bit on the financial advisory section of their offering. And that's the area that we're going to drill down on. And we are going to talk particularly around the areas that are highlighted on the screen. Okay, we're going to talk about those areas that are highlighted on the screen. And like I said earlier, we're going to use plain English. Okay, all right. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to come back into the virtual room. And I'm going to start off with my first question that I'm going to toss over to Natasha, because she's the one that started this whole thing to begin with. So Natasha, can you describe very briefly in plain English what your role is, your current role, and why you believe that this particular profession has been one of the best kept secrets?
All right. Hi, everybody. Let's get started. So I guess I should start off by saying what is insolvency. So when a company is insolvent, it means that in plain, the company cannot pay its bills. It cannot pay the people that it owes. So in an overview, our role is to find the assets within that company and pay back the people that the company owes. Now, it's much more to the job than that, and a lot of moving pieces, but that's the simple way to explain what we do. So in most cases that I work on, a petitioner goes to the court and gives a judge a summary of why the company should stop doing business. So let's do an example. So KFC, the restaurant, they owe a lot of people money. So a creditor that they owe goes to the court and gives a summary to say, KFC owes me this amount of money, and I want the business to stop because I'm owed this much money. And the judge would give KFC some time to pay back the money. And then the judge notices that, okay, this is not happening. KFC is not paying this creditor back. Let's close the business. And that turns into the company being wound up, meaning that the company is now closed. So the people in charge of KFC, the directors, all of their powers to operate the company stop. And that's where Deloitte Financial Advisory comes in, the restructuring team. We take over the company, and that is called, the person that takes over the company is called a liquidator, which are the partners on the team. And then the partners have minions such as myself and a few other people to help them manage the closing of the company. That is insolvency in the most simplest form.
Thank you. I'm glad you use Kentucky Fried Chicken, because we can all like envision that and in your scenario, in your example. So Natasha, basically at this point, the company is at a very stressful stage in their business cycle, so to speak. So can you explain a little bit about what the emotions are like for the client as you're trying to come up with solutions for the client? What are some of the things that the client is most concerned about at that time?
The client being KFC?
KFC, yes.
They're worried about how they're going to pay the 10 people that they owe. Where am I getting this money from? I cannot pay the smallest bill. How can I pay the biggest bill? And then for the creditor, you know, if you're owed money, you want it to be paid back. So I think it's more stress on the person that's owed the money.
So you are in between the client and, I mean, the actual, like the KFC in this example, and the creditors. You're in between.
We're in between. We're trying to help the creditor.
Okay. So my question is, what set of, let's leave the technical skills to the side. We'll come back to that. But what set of interpersonal skill do you need to have to manage the tension?
It's a lot. It's a lot of soft skills you need, being able to just talk to people like how we're talking right now. I think that's just soft skills.
Give me some examples, because so many times, and I do a lot of work in this space around soft skills, and you know, there is a technical part of what we do, but a significant part of succeeding as a professional really begins when you can hone those soft skills, when you can have difficult conversations and being able to do it in such a way that you build collaboration and you build a win-win for example, the KFC and for the creditors, so that they walk away with something that they feel as if they've received something, but they've done it in a way where you're also building relationships as well. So what particular soft skills would you say, if you can be a little bit more specific, that you would say brings a certain value to helping to get both parties across the line?
Yeah, okay, let's go back to the KFC. So like KFC has employees, right?
Yeah.
The company closes, that means the employee loses their job. So you need to be able to understand where the employee is coming from when you're talking to them about the company closing, but then you have the person that is also owed money. It's like
empathy. So we're talking about empathy here, Natasha.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But not too much empathy to the point where you're on the side of KFC, because KFC is kind of in the wrong.
Okay, so being able to show empathy, but at the same time, being able to still create that environment where each party understand where their responsibility or accountability begins and ends.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is it.
Okay, and easier said than done for anyone that has worked in a very high stressed environment when individuals or companies are going through significant changes that is extremely stressful. Being able to use your soft skills, use your empathy to build an environment that facilitates an outcome that is positive in the end is not easy, and it takes years to hone that particular skill set. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Natasha. So Ariana, I'm jumping to you. Where does the lawyer comes in all of this?
Well, a lawyer is involved in the entire life cycle of a company, so it's very natural that we are also there upon the potential end of a company as well. So it's actually exactly what you said at the beginning of this, where you talked about my role being a very supportive role to and almost complementary towards what Natasha and Georgia will be doing in their role. And again, Natasha has lined me up perfectly in terms of her example of we'll call it the hypothetical KFC.
Hypothetical, do not go around and say that KFC, exactly.
Our hypothetical KFC in this scenario, where of course the whole process starts formally in court. There's of course a lot that goes on behind the scenes leading up to why that petitioner would come and say, okay, I'd like KFC to be wound up, but they need to go to court in that instance. And of course, that's where I come in terms of either I'm representing the petitioner, I could be appearing and representing a creditor in this instance. And then there's some scenarios where you have people who are not either and are somewhat interested and a bit pokey, who like to pop in, and either they are maybe involved in a creditor's subsidiary, or they're involved somehow in some peripheral fashion to the winding up of hypothetical KFC. And they may say, well, actually, Ariana, I need you to go and just have a look about what's going on, because I think this might impact something that we're working on, or something that could impact our business. So there's a lot of different ways that lawyers can get involved, whether it's directly upon the instruction of the liquidators or upon the instruction of a creditor. Okay,
so basically you can represent both sides, both parties in their different capacity.
Yes, and as long as it's in their different capacity, I shouldn't be racking up and representing them
You
both.
shouldn't be representing both. Exactly, exactly. So thank you so much. So Georgia, is from a day-to-day perspective, what, if anything, do you do differently from NATASHA?
Oh, I mean, it depends, I suppose, on what point of a case that we are on. That will determine. So if we are newly being appointed on a case, it's generally quite rushed, and all at once, and you're really busy, and you would be getting the company's information, making sure you're doing the right thing through court. Everyone needs to know that the company's gone into liquidation. There's you need to be careful. We need to get charge of the bank accounts. We need to see what the assets are. We're there to kind of protect anything that is still in that company. If you've had a case for a bit longer, something that we might do on a daily basis is investigating the bank statements. So we would look back on what had happened leading up to this liquidation. Is there been any money siphoned off that we can go and get back? Was there anything going on that shouldn't have been going on? Is there any recoveries to make in that instance? Dependent on what the company is, you might have to trade that company. We might have to go in and continue a certain amount of the work. So that could mean that you're operating a company. You need to run the systems. You need to make sure that things are in place so you don't lose value. So it is so diverse, and you never know. I mean, in Bermuda, there's a high chance it's going to be a financial or an insurance company, but that's not always the case. So, dependent on what comes across your desk, you could be doing something very, very different every day.
Okay. Now, I am the kind of person, Georgia, that likes variety, right? When I started my career in the insurance industry, that's what was attractive for me. I think I've had like 6 or 7 distinct careers in the insurance industry, each one building on the other. And so what you've just described is very attractive for those individuals that like working in an environment that is dynamic, right? That is dynamic, where you have some ideas of what can happen, but you really don't know exactly how that's gonna pen out. And so that really keeps you engaged, and you have an environment where you're learning and growing and challenging yourself and putting yourself into new areas. And I like that part of it. I also hear a lot of need for analytical skills, research skills, really being able to cut through the noise and being able to figure out exactly what the issues are. So as you're listening, if these skill sets are resonating with you and they're playing towards your strength, then that's something for you to consider. So NATASHA, I am really curious if you can tell us a little bit about, I hope you didn't fall into this space like I did back in 1989. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey that really got you into this space?
Okay, so I knew what I didn't want to do leaving graduate school. I didn't want to be in audit. I didn't want to do accounting, but I wanted to be in the finance space, right? So when Deloitte approached me, so the first job offer from Deloitte, or job idea from Deloitte, was to be an associate in the audit department. And I said, no, this is not, I already know that this is what I don't want to do. So they said, okay. They came back a few months later and they said, oh, we have an opening in the financial advisory department. And I said, yeah, let's do that. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I think even after 6 months, I still didn't know what I had signed up for, but I can say that it was, I think it's been the best point to start my career. It kind of did fall into my lap type of thing.
Did
I
it
didn't
though?
really have to look very
Did
hard.
it though, right? Did it though? Because there are a lot of things, you know, I'm gonna affirm you for a minute, but there are a lot of things that you had already done that created the opportunity to attract that towards you in terms of just your educational background. And also, I will also affirm that knowing, being self-aware around what it is you don't want, that you don't want to do in your career, you're like 50% there, right? If you are very clear about what it is you don't want, then it's easier for you to identify the things that you may be interested in. So those are two things, right?
Yes.
One, that you've done the work, and number two, you have the level of self-awareness to know what it is you don't want. Then the third thing is you took a chance, you took a risk in entering into a new area, and then just give it a go. You gave it a go. And so that's another thing about developing unique career paths. It's being able to take a risk and to take a calculated risk, understanding that I have the skills, I've done the work, I know what I don't want, and I'm willing to explore what else is possible. Okay. When those three things come together, you create an environment that allows you now to really start to explore and to hone and to become an expert at what you do. So thank you for saying that. Same question, I'm going to bump that over to Georgia, because Georgia is on my screen, is right next to Natasha. Georgia, how did you get into this space?
I have a bit more of a dramatic entrance to to this industry than most people. So I did not start in anything to do with this. I was a graphic designer and I worked in marketing for about 6 years. And my family business actually went into administration in the UK. And I worked with the administrators, and that was my entrance into what what you do when the company is in financial distress and how you get out of it. And I, as much as it obviously wasn't the best experience, I loved working with them. So they actually offered me a job after that. I had to start, I was 28. I had to start with the interns. I had to learn from the beginning, but I do think this industry in particular, you can learn very quickly and you can progress very, very quickly. So, and I was lucky I had those opportunities, but I just had to relearn at that point. And most of it is on the job. You know, there are designations that you can do once you're in there, but you can learn it just by doing the job and learning on the job, which I think is a good part of it as well.
All right, thank you for sharing that. So for those who are on the call who thinks, oh, I'm off here doing something completely different, you're in the right place, because Georgia's background shows us that you can pivot and you can create a new career. And it's also interesting, right, Georgia, you actually got exposed to this career choice through your personal experience, and that piqued your interest, and then here you are. So, so there are different ways that you can enter an area such as this. And also, thank you for pointing out, making the point that you can get a lot of the experience on the job experience. Because so many times I think you can get bogged down thinking, oh, I have to get that designation and that designation and that designation. But if you get into a good program and a good internship, you can literally learn your craft basically as you are working, as you're experiencing. Same as an underwriter. There's art and there's a science to it, and you only learn it by actually doing it. So if you can get into an internship like that and get going, that's where you get to develop and get to really figure out, you know, where is your sweet spot and what it is that you enjoy. there is a couple questions that came up in the chat, so I'm gonna just pop into the chat real quickly. And I'm gonna pull that up. Okay, hopefully I don't miss anyone. What skills are required to enter this field? I think we may have answered that a little bit. Does anyone want to add anything? What skills maybe that you have not mentioned as yet that you think is worth pointing out for anyone that may be considering this particular area? This is from Anika.
I would say there's nothing that would prevent you. So don't feel like, oh, I haven't studied this, I haven't studied that. There's nothing that would prevent you. The most important thing is being somebody, you know, a problem solver. You can think on your feet. You like, this isn't a steady job. So, you know, if you like that excitement and you like a job that's going to challenge you, that they're the skills, and you really can learn while you're doing it. So just go, if it's something you think you're interested in, go and speak to someone, because you're not going to be cut off from entering it because you didn't do this degree or that degree. We have a massive mix of degrees in this office. So we have languages, archaeology, sports science, finance. Like, nothing's going to block you off from coming in.
Thank
I would
you.
just-
Thank you for saying that. Ariana?
The only thing I'll add is obviously from the side of if you want to actually be a practicing lawyer, there are a few things.
Oh, yes.
Just a few.
Just one or two, just one or two. But I completely agree, aside from the usual, you know, you got to go to law school, get called to the bar. I completely agree with what Georgia and Tasha said in regards to the adaptability. My background isn't in specifically insolvency and restructuring. I came from a criminal defense background. That was what I was doing. And then moved towards financial crime, and then found that it naturally played into insolvency and restructuring from a civil litigation standpoint. And what's really, I think, allowed me to kind of make the different moves is the ability to be open to learn and able to kind of adapt with the different demands that come with the different practice areas. So exactly what Georgia was saying, no matter what your background immediately is or what you've done, even if you're in law, which can be a very structured career, it feels like there is so much room to be flexible and to explore if you want to.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat that says, what advice would you give a young person with no idea of what career path they should take? I think we've answered that question, which is, it's up to you to decide. Okay, there, as Georgia started off, there's nothing that will prevent you from being able to access this opportunity if you so choose, right? So regardless of your background, if you have you know, the right attitude, if you have a good work ethic, if you're professional, if you bring those beautiful soft skills that somebody asked about earlier, of collaboration, being able to have a really good approach to being able to handle yourself in high stress environment, being able to show empathy, okay? And having a growth mindset, the ability to know that you can always learn and grow and develop, and being able to try new things. For each one of our panelists that's here today, they took a risk at some point to try something new. Ariana's background was not, this was not in her plan in front of her, this is where I'm going to end up. But that's how life is. It brings things to you and you open yourself up and you leverage your strengths. So you must know what it is that you're good at and what your strengths are. I'm going to ask this question of Natasha. What has been, this is from Kelly, what has been your biggest challenge working in the insolvency area so far?
Thank you, Kelly, for the question. I also see a question from Terrence Stovall with a similar, which goes along with my answer. So trying to balance the empathy versus being professional and doing your job. I think that is one of the biggest challenges in insolvency, and also personal bankruptcy. So bankruptcy and insolvency are kind of the same thing. Bankruptcy is for in Bermuda, personal bankruptcy is when a person cannot pay their bills or the people that they owe, just like insolvency for a company is not being able to pay your bills. So in personal bankruptcy, you have the bankrupt, and then you have the person that they owe. You kind of feel bad for taking more money from the bankrupt and giving it to the creditor, but then the creditor is also upset. So just the balance is a challenge. The balance of your emotions is a challenge. I think some cases that I try to not put my emotion in it, and that gives me balance for the cases that I do have emotion in them, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So you're really now leaning into your other soft skills, which is being able to adapt, adapt depending on what is in front of you that requires you to show up differently in order to get the outcome that you're looking for. Okay. There's a question here. I'm going to bump this over to Ariana. This is from Roxanne. Do you work alongside other bodies? I guess that's for Natasha or Georgia. The police as well. Also, does it require knowledge of certain legislations, depending on the company's industry? So maybe this is a two-part question. Either one of you can grab that.
I can definitely take the second half. The first half actually would be perhaps more suitable for the Deloitte team in terms of working perhaps sometimes with the police if something needs to be referred. But that is something that obviously we don't disregard either. If we come across behavior that looks like it's moved in towards fraud or the area of any type of financial crime, especially, is more so what you could see, then that's something that we need to be very cognizant of and making sure that we're doing what we need to do in terms of reporting it to the police. But in terms of legislation, we do have the Companies Act here in Bermuda. And we also have rules that cover winding up in Bermuda, which we refer to as the winding up rules, very creative name. And so those are kind of the two key pieces of legislation that we can live within. Obviously, if you're dealing with an insurance company, you have certain provisions under the Insurance Act that will relate to a winding up of an insurer. There was a very interesting case that just came out in relation to some of that subject matter, but those are kind of the key pieces of legislation. I would say that out of all the X to read, I find the Companies Act, and some people may in the comments tear me to shreds. I find the Companies Act to be one of the easier to read. I find it to be sometimes a bit straightforward. There are some points that perhaps need a little bit of editing here and there, but if you are ever curious, I personally like reading the Companies Act. So it's a good place to kind of start and have a look around how the whole process works here in Bermuda, because it's all there from the start of incorporation all the way straight to a lot of matters having to do with winding up.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to answer the first half of that question around do you work alongside other bodies? Maybe Georgia?
Yeah, I can take that. Yes, we do. I think we have quite a good blend of when when we're actually appointed on a case, we can leverage and work with lots of specialist people without having to be the specialist. So for the legal aspects, we work with lawyers and we get to learn in that space. We obviously have a lot of accounting knowledge here, so you get a bit of that. It might be actuarial. It might depend on what the kind of company is. You do get to work and learn from a lot of different people. And on the other side, before a company goes into liquidation, there's obviously a lot of people that have questions. And if a company is struggling, it will get noticed by lots of different people involved. So yes, we work with all sorts of people, and we would advise not just the company, but if someone was owed money and they thought something was going on, or they didn't think something wasn't being regulated, all these things, people would come to us for advice because they want to know what's going on, but also it's important to know what moves you're making and making sure you're doing the right ones if a company is kind of in financial trouble. So yes, we work with all sorts of people and all sorts of industries.
All right, great. And I'm going to piggyback another question that came in the chat from Tyson. He said, what role does Deloitte play in representing the employees? Is this part left up to the workers' unions or tribunals?
I can answer
Anyone
that
wants
question.
to add on that?
So the employee in this liquidation winding up would be considered a preferential creditor. So they're at the top of the list of the people to get money back if there is money to get back in the case. So it is Deloitte Financial Advisory's role to have the employees as a priority of it's not up to the workers. It depends on if the company is like a unionized company when you talk about unions and tribunals. But yeah, Deloitte definitely plays a huge role in representing the employees. There's a
Okay.
whole employee act that shows how and what and when to represent the employee and how to give them the money back and where
Excellent.
they fall in the waterfall.
Okay, so we know where the pecking order is and the how that is done. That's already laid out.
Mhm.
There's a question from Kyle, and I guess it's because Natasha is doing her CFA and he wants to know, I don't know if it's he or she, but this person wants to know, is your role, does that qualify as work experience towards your CFA designation? That was a question.
Yes, it does. And that was a part of a reason that I signed up to do the CFA, because insolvency, so you have assets. Sometimes the asset needs to be evaluated. You have to do evaluation on the asset, and the CFA teaches you, well, part of the CFA curriculum teaches you how to do that. So you can definitely get experience in this field and get the CFA at the same time.
I love stuff like that because that's just smart. That's just smart move, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to work hard. You can work smart as well. So you can kill one stone, kill two birds. All
Yeah.
right. There's a question here at the top that Justine sent through, and it's more on the preventative side because we talk a lot about what happens when things aren't going well and we're kind of at the end cycle. But the question was, does Deloitte provide recommendations to company to help prevent them from getting into the situations? And we use the hypothetical KFC situation. Are there things that Deloitte does as a preventative move? Anyone want to address that? Georgia?
Yeah, I can talk about that. Yes, definitely. I mean, we talk about liquidation on this call because it tends to be the most common known and people relate to it, but there is other procedures that a company can go through, which would be more on the restructuring side if they could be rescued. You know, our job is to look at what is the best outcome for the people that are due money. Sometimes that is to close the company down, but actually sometimes it is that they continue, but they just have some sort of procedure in place. You know, sometimes people might get their money, but they might only get 70% of what they're owed. So we would look at what is the best course in that stage, so we can definitely advise beforehand. And I would say that is a point for me that I wish more people knew what we did, because sometimes when people come to us, it's, you know, they've been struggling for so long because people don't know that they can go and get advice. And there's so many things you can do to get out of it, but also there's things you need to be careful of if you're running that company and you're in that position. So that is a big part of what we do as well, is to advise on that.
So how do you make that, you know, we're doing this on this platform, but how do you increase the level of awareness from a preventative method, Georgia, now? What are some of the things that Deloitte is doing?
Trying to get out in front of as many people as we can and be like part of events. But I do think it's difficult because it's not you know, a lot of things that may get talked about through word of mouth, people might not necessarily want to start chatting to people that they know. Oh, by the way, I nearly went bankrupt and this happened. So I do think that's an issue sometimes, is people don't always want to talk about it. They don't want to make it known that they've had these issues. So we're always looking at different ways to try and get it out there, you know, just so people know, at least come and have a conversation. A lot of the advice that we can give is on a no names basis. So we don't even need to know who it is. But that is a challenge. And there's also not as many I don't think there's a clear cut route in, so it's not talked about as much. I think people don't know until it's happened to you.
Until it's
which we
happened,
would-
which is
yeah,
generally too late. So that's why these platforms are great, because you're getting the information and that level of awareness out long before you need it, right? Long before you need it. Okay, so I want each one of you to share two skills that you think are critical in your roles and why. And then just one area that you think can be an obstacle if you have it. So in other words, if you have a tendency to be XYZ, then this might not be the right career path. But if you have these strengths, then this is an area that could work for you. Anyone can start.
I can start. For me, organization is probably one of the top skills that you need. I mean, it can be learned, but definitely need organization. There are so many moving pieces when you have a case that you need to know where things are. That is right down from your email inbox to the filing system that you have, and then just the day-to-day management of the case.
All right, so strong organizational skills. All right,
Yeah.
productivity. All right, what else?
And then I think negotiation skills later down in further down in your career. You may not need them at the beginning, but negotiation skills to be able to sell the asset at the highest price so that you can give the highest return back to the creditor.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And what one skill you think, boy, if this is, if you're wired this way, or this is the type of thing you enjoy, then this might not be the area for you. What jumps off for you?
If you like to sit at your desk and only work on Excel sheets, only do like accounting type of work. I don't know what type of skill that is.
So
but
you're talking about just kind of doing the same thing day in, day out, day
if
in,
you
day
want
out.
that,
If that's what you like to do, then
yes.
this may not be the right area for you.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
All
Because the job is just, it's something
It's dynamic,
new every
it's
day.
changing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone wants to add to that?
I would say from the legal side of things, if you're interested in going to court, you don't have to go to court. There's plenty of ways to do this job without going to court as a lawyer. But if you're interested in going to court and actually being the person who represents the companies or the creditors, you would want to have some desire to do advocacy and to actually do public speaking and speak in front of people. Again, and a willingness, like I said before, to learn. So much of this is just constantly learning new things, accepting that you don't know everything. There's a lot of humility that comes with this job, especially at the more junior end, and accepting that you're going to make mistakes and that you're going to have to ask the dumb question, which don't get me started on what is a dumb question. I don't think there really are all the time. And I would say if there's one thing, if you don't like to do, then being a insolvency and restructuring lawyer is not going to work. If you don't like to read, if you don't like to read, if reading's not your jam, if you're like, don't put me in front of books, I don't want to read a lot, then this is not going to be your favorite thing to do. It's a lot of reading involved.
So if you're not excited about reading the Insurance Act like Ariana is, then this is probably not the area for you. So there's a lot of skills that you have tossed out, Ariana, and I hope I remember them all. But I'm going to summarize them. Essentially, you would want to have this soft skill called curiosity. Being curious, it is one of the top soft skills that employers are looking for. Do you have this sense of curiosity? Because that's what creates that learning appetite. Okay, that learning appetite is having that innate sense of curiosity. And the other one you mentioned was humility, which is critical when you are positioning or posturing yourself to learn and to become an expert at something. It is also the skill that will help you if you're transitioning from one area over to the other, is having this beautiful core competency of humility that really puts you in a position to learn and to be taught, right? And when you have that, it not only allows you to learn and to grow as an individual, but it makes you such an amazing person to be a part of when you're working in a team, okay? When you're working in a team, because then it allows you to be able to make the mistakes that are necessary in order for you to become better at what it is that you do. I was saying this to a client last week, that there is no other way of learning than experiencing mistakes. That's when we learn, that's when it hits us. That's when we get it, is when we make, and when we're in an environment where there's humility, we have created a space that allows us to make mistakes and grow. So thank you so much for saying that. So we're not expecting you to come into this space as a know-it-all, but as a, I like to call it, a learn-it-all. Georgia, anything you want to add or build on from what Ariana or Natasha shared so far?
Tash took mine that I'd written down. She took my answers. But yeah, I think it's that it's so fast paced and you never know what's going to come across your desk, that if you are someone that really, really struggles out of a very defined structure, then it wouldn't be for you, you know. And if you're someone that gets bored easily, it is for you, because you will not be bored. The lady that I first worked with, she got into it because she was an accountant, and she went to her boss and said, I am bored. And they sent her to the insolvency department, and she never turned back. Like, if you need something to change and something new to come across your desk, then this is for you, because you won't get bored.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. You see, so I could work in that area because that's my personality type. I like to learn. Once I've mastered something, I'm like, okay, what's next, right? And so that really keeps you engaged. And when you are doing, when you're involved in a career or a profession where you are growing, you are more engaged. And when you're more engaged, you're more fulfilled. And when you're more fulfilled, your output and your performance increases. Your well-being is better. You're happier at work when you're more engaged. Okay, so these are some of the things that you need to think about as you're looking at either building your career or moving your career in other areas. These are the components that helps you to really determine what's that right fit for you. So I have two questions. We have about 10 minutes. I told you that an hour is going to go quickly. The first question I want to ask is, how much do you make? You can give ranges, but when someone is looking at this career path, realistically, what should they be looking at the beginning of their career, mid-level to their career, etc.? Give a range that you're comfortable with. I'm asking that question because it's really nice to talk about careers, but I know that most of the people on the call wants to know, how much should I be expecting to earn in this space? I think it's a great question.
Me too. I love it. Okay, so it depends on where you're working. So legal, like Ariana, may have a different pay scale than working at a Big Four or a small big boutique firm. I work at a Big Four. I would say that the pay when you first start. Okay, wait, no, let me change this around a little bit. No matter what industry you sign yourself up for, when you're 1 year in, you're not going to be making 100K. That's just a fact. Maybe not even 80K, 70K. But as you grow and you get experience, the financial reward in insolvency can be lucrative. Yeah, I think that's my democratic answer right there.
So if you had to pick a number, I'm not going to let you get off the hook that fast, but if you had to pick a range, so I'm coming in hot from university, I have a master's degree like you do, I've done a couple of internships, I'm pretty clear that this is a field I could leverage my skill set. I have great communication skills, like Ariana says. I'm a good organizer. I love the dynamics pace. I actually thrive off all the differences and just the energy of what's going on. That's my thing. I love to negotiate.
Mhm.
What's a
The-
floor? What should I at least be expecting?
The floor is 50 to 60K.
Okay. All
I can
right.
only speak for where I
Yes.
am right now.
That's correct. Thank you. Ariana.
So I do have to kind of piggyback off of Tasha a little bit and just give a caveat saying that it really does depend where you go in terms of, especially with law, because the smaller, more boutique firms, as Tasha's indicated, where you may have a very kind of specialist area will pay perhaps quite differently than a much larger firm on island, whereas like the firm I'm currently at, Conyers, is a very large global offshore firm. With that being said, thankfully, I can lean off of things like the Department of Statistics does different things. So if you're ever wondering as well, everyone, please, before you walk into any kind of negotiation, especially the more senior you get, check out the Department of Statistics Instagram page. They set out a lot of these careers and they've set out the median incomes and all of that. But thankfully, they have kind of put it out for lawyers. And I could say that the average earning for a Black woman Bermudian lawyer, as I am, I think they put it down as like 179K. That's a lot of money, or somewhere around there, 150, and that's the average for all of us across the industry. So that's what you may expect down the line. But when you're walking in the door at a law firm, again, your floor should be 60s, 70s if you're walking in the door fresh out of law school.
Okay. So 60 up to 70 is kind of where you're looking for in terms of a salary range.
Ask for more though. Always ask for
Oh,
more. Always.
do not get me started. Ariana, don't get me started. You know, we did a whole huddle on negotiating, right? Do your homework, do your research, talk to people that are in the space. Take people out to coffee and pick their brain. You know, maybe you're bringing a unique set of perspective and skill set that has a value. Okay, so these are just guidelines, but I love talking about numbers and salaries, and I want everyone on this call to get comfortable talking about salary. Okay, it matters. It matters. Your salary is an expression of the value and the worth that you bring to an organization, and I don't want you to shy away from it. So get comfortable being uncomfortable around this topic.
I have an added comment to that.
Yes.
So I will say that in your first year, you may not make that much money, but you can make a lot of money in a short period of time.
Yes.
So you think that 3 years sounds like a lot, is really not that much. And in your third year, you are fine. You can breathe and live your life the way that you want to live it.
We know that matters to these Gen Zs and young millennials, right?
Yeah, it doesn't take that long. It
Yes.
doesn't take that long to
Yes.
make a lot of money in this industry.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. There's one more question, and then Georgia, I'm going to ask my last question to Georgia. This person says, she says, I'm 56, so she's a Gen Xer. Is it too late for her to get into this space? She has at least 10 years plus left on her, and we're living longer, and we're healthy, and we're living longer. So Rhonda, you could be around at your peak for another 15 to 20 years. Is it too late? No, the
Nope.
overwhelming answer is no. The overwhelming answer is no. You can still go at it. Okay, I started a brand new career, you know, very close to Rhonda's age. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, so the question for you, Georgia, is I have 3 women on my panel. Where are the guys?
Working.
Touche.
So we can do this.
Yes. So are there males? Are there males in the space? And just give me some perspective, because I love to see women in the space. What is the gender? The short version is, what is kind of the gender compilation, even anecdotally, in the space for you guys?
I think in our office, it's fairly balanced. I think the industry has been predominantly male, as most are. But I do see that changing. There's, I think we're probably, did you say we're even here? I think so, in this office. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, and Ariana, in where you are on your side?
We're working on it. We're working on it. It is a work in progress.
Yes.
But it's in progress, and that's the
Yes.
beautiful part.
Great, thank you. We have literally about 3 minutes left, and one of the things that the reason why I ended on that question is because in an industry that is predominantly male, right? That is predominantly male, it is really wonderful to have 3 women representing that space. And so in addition to exposing individuals to this particular profession, I hope we're also introducing females, women to this particular profession as well, to know that you can also operate in this space as a minority, as an underrepresented group, and still succeed. So I really wanted to highlight that don't give up. You know, I was watching a docuseries last weekend on Netflix about Bill Russell. And Bill Russell, back in the late 50s, early 60s, during the civil rights movement, was one of the first African Americans to play in the NBA. And at the time, it was unheard of. It was literally unheard of to have an African American playing at a professional level. And Red Auerbach, who was the coach for the Celtics at the time, he had a philosophy that I think is phenomenal that we can embrace. He said, it doesn't matter it matters most who is on the team so that we can win, and it doesn't matter what their differences are. And now we look at the NBA, how many years later, and what do we see? We see a predominantly African-American compilation in the team. So imagine if we take this mindset, who knows, maybe 10 or 15 years from now, we will see a complete shift, right? But it's all about making small changes like these to create small systemic changes that can create new norms. And so I just want to take a moment to say, first of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for just really trusting this space, and for Natasha for reaching out, and for saying, I want to be a part of expressing new information, sharing new information about something that I thoroughly enjoy, and I want other talent to be exposed to that instead of being our best kept secret. Is there any last word that each one of you would like to share before we wrap up?
I think that I would just say to the younger group is to be open to where you can go in life. Don't put yourself in a box. You can enter into the insolvency career. You can enter into any career, really, but just be open to what you can do.
Thank you. Be open. Yes. Ariane, I see you smiling there.
No, I just completely second that. I completely second that. It sounds so simple and so almost cliche, but it's 100% true. Be open, be flexible. You never know what will come, and don't be afraid to say yes. Yes is a very powerful word. And thank you. So thank you for this as well.
Oh, my pleasure. I believe say yes and then go figure it out. Okay. Say yes and then go figure it out. I do that every day. I just say yes and then I go figure it out. All right. Georgia, any last comments?
I would just say, don't underestimate how important life experience is. And, you know, even if you might not be able to walk straight into the job that you want to go and learn on any job, you know, just get out there and learn something, because life experience will help you wherever you go.
Thank you, Georgia. And what a nice note to end on. It doesn't really matter where you start. It's really about where you end. Georgia started in the graphic design area, and now she's in something completely different, but she's been able, I'm sure she is using her creative skills to solve problems. Okay. So if you're in a career where you're thinking, I have no idea where this is going to go, it is normal. You are in good company. Okay. It's about being open, being curious, and having an amazing sense of self-belief that it's going to be okay. I have my oldest son, he's a young millennial, and I say this to him all the time, and I'll say to you, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. So on that note, we are right on time. I just want to say thank you to everyone that has stayed on. I think we stayed pretty much at the same number for the entire hour. The feedback, panelists, you can have a look into the chat, and you can just kind of see the comments and how much they appreciated your time and appreciated the information that you have shared and they have stayed on for this call. So thank you very much, Ariana, Georgia, and Natasha. Thank you so much for just being open and being candid and for making this conversation so easy. And for all of you that have attended, thank you so much. The recordings will be posted in a couple of days. So if you want to share it or to a friend, a colleague, etc. You can also reach out to us on LinkedIn as well if you need more information. We may have a part 2 to this session. And again, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
And thank you for organizing.
My pleasure. That was
Bringing this
fun.
together.
You made it easy.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.